They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But mine was served on a Tuesday afternoon, in front of 200 people, by a 7-year-old boy with a homemade picture frame and the kind of truth that burns bridges to ash. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon in Lakewood, a suburb just west of Denver where the mountains kissed the horizon and everyone pretended their lives were as pristine as the view. I was on my knees, scrubbing coffee stains from the marble floor of a downtown office building, one of 3 cleaning jobs I juggled to keep Lucas fed, clothed, and in a school district that actually cared. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The caller ID made my stomach clench. Lucas. His voice came through small and hopeful, the way it always did when he was trying not to sound disappointed. Mom? You're going to make it on time today, right? I don't want to be the last one at the gate again. I looked at the lobby stretching before me, still half dirty, and then at my watch. Pickup was in 40 minutes. I was at least 50 minutes away, even without traffic. My supervisor had already warned me twice this month about leaving early. I needed this job. But I needed my son more. Baby, I promise I'm trying, I said, hating myself for the crack in my voice. Let me call Grandma Margaret, okay? She can pick you up. There was a pause. Then, okay, Mom, I love you. I love you more than the whole sky. I hung up and immediately dialed my mother. The phone rang 4 times before her crisp voice answered, accompanied by the tinkling of wine glasses in the background. Probably setting up for one of Jessica's impromptu gatherings. Mother, I'm stuck at work. Can you please pick up Lucas? I'll only be 20 minutes late. I just need... The boy has legs, doesn't he? Margaret's tone was ice wrapped in silk. When I was his age, I walked 2 miles home every day. These children today are so coddled. It's no wonder they grow up weak. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles going white. He's 7 years old. The main road has heavy traffic. I just need you to... Sarah, dear, you need to stop babying him. He needs to learn independence, or he'll end up like his father. Useless. She paused, and I could hear her taking a sip of something. Besides, we're quite busy preparing for Jessica's book club, you understand. Mother, please, just this once. The line went dead with a sharp click that echoed in my ear like a slap. I stared at my phone, my reflection distorted in its black screen. Then I did something I'd never done before. I stood up, left my cleaning cart in the middle of the lobby, grabbed my jacket, and ran. The taxi ride was agony. Traffic on West Colfax Avenue crawled like molasses. Every red light felt like a personal attack. I called the school twice, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. No answer. I watched the meter tick up, knowing this ride was eating into our grocery budget for the week, and I didn't care. When I finally reached Mountain View Elementary, the pickup lane was empty. The playground was silent. My heart stopped. I sprinted to the main office, my worn sneakers squeaking on the polished floors. Through the glass door, I saw him. Lucas sat curled up on a plastic chair that was too big for his small frame, his dinosaur backpack clutched to his chest. His face was streaked with dirt, his eyes red and swollen. His left shoe had a hole in it. I hadn't noticed that morning. Mrs. Rodriguez, the school secretary, looked up as I burst through the door. She was a kind woman with warm brown eyes and silver threading through her black hair. She'd always been gentle with Lucas. Miss Sarah, she said softly, her hand reaching out to touch my arm. I'm so glad you're here. I fell to my knees in front of Lucas and pulled him into my arms. He was shaking. Baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Mrs. Rodriguez cleared her throat gently. Miss Sarah, I need to tell you what happened. His grandmother's car pulled up about 45 minutes ago. Lucas ran to it, so excited. I saw them through the window. She paused, her expression troubled. They rolled down the window, laughed, and said, Tell your mother we're not a free taxi service. Then they drove away. The air left my lungs. Lucas tried to be brave, Mrs. Rodriguez continued, her voice wavering. He sat on the curb for a while. But when some older kids started teasing him about being abandoned, he got scared. He tried to cross the street, but a car honked and he ran back. That's when I brought him inside. I held Lucas tighter, feeling his small heart beating against mine like a trapped bird. He whispered into my neck, his voice breaking, Mom, did I do something wrong? Why don't they love me? Something inside me cracked, not broke, cracked. And through that crack, something hot and fierce began to seep out. No, baby. I whispered back, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. You are perfect. You are so perfect. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve to be in your life. That night, after Lucas fell asleep clutching his favorite stuffed elephant, I sat at our small kitchen table in our even smaller apartment. The refrigerator hummed. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance. And I made a decision. Not a dramatic one. Not a loud one. Just a quiet, cold certainty that settled into my bones like winter. They had crossed a line. And this time, I wasn't going to let it go. My family had always been complicated. My father, Robert, had made his fortune in real estate, or at least that's what he told people. The truth was murkier, involving questionable property deals and partnerships that dissolved mysteriously right before audits. My mother, Margaret, was his perfect accessory, all country club luncheons and charity galas, her smile as polished as her jewelry. And then there was Jessica, my younger sister, who had somehow convinced everyone, including our parents, that she was an influencer, a lifestyle guru, a beacon of modern motherhood. Her Instagram feed was full of designer handbags, organic smoothie bowls, and her daughter Lily dressed like a miniature fashion model. I was the inconvenient truth they preferred to ignore. The daughter who got pregnant by a man who left before Lucas was born, the one who cleaned offices instead of attending wine tastings, the one who reminded them that their perfect facade had cracks. But I'd kept trying, kept showing up to family dinners where they'd seat me at the far end of the table, kept accepting hand-me-down furniture they were too generous to throw away, kept asking for help, for babysitting, for just a shred of the support they lavished on Jessica and Lily, kept telling myself that family was family, that blood was blood, that surely they'd come around. The incident at the school wasn't the first time they'd hurt Lucas. It was just the first time I let myself admit it was intentional. I didn't confront them right away. People like my parents, people like Jessica, they didn't understand shame. They didn't feel guilt. They only understood consequences. And if I was going to make them face consequences, I needed to be smart about it. The next morning, I received a call from Principal Henderson. She was a tall black woman with an authoritative presence softened by genuine warmth. She'd been a beacon of support since Lucas started at Mountain View. "Miss Sarah, I'd like you to come in this afternoon if possible. I need to discuss yesterday's incident." When I arrived at her office, she gestured for me to sit. "I've filed an incident report," she explained, sliding a folder across her desk. "It's standard procedure when a child is left unsupervised. Has this happened before?" I thought about lying, about protecting them the way I always had. Then I looked at the folder and thought about Lucas sitting on that curb, confused and scared. "Yes," I said. "Multiple times." Principal Henderson nodded slowly. "I'm going to keep this on record. If there's a pattern of neglect or abandonment, even from extended family members, we're required to document it. Not to get anyone in trouble," she added quickly, seeing my face, "but to protect Lucas." I smiled, and it felt strange on my face. Cold, calculated. "Thank you, Principal Henderson. I think documentation is very important." Over the next few weeks, I became a ghost in my parents' house, not absent, but present in a new way. I visited more often, always with a smile, always offering to help. I'd reorganize the study while my father was out. I'd assist my mother with her jewelry collection, helping her catalog pieces in the attic. I'd help Jessica find things in her overflowing closet. And while I helped, I observed, I photographed, I documented. My father's home office was a treasure trove. In his locked filing cabinet, which I'd learned to pick open with a bobby pin and patience, I found property deeds with signatures that looked suspiciously inconsistent. Contracts for development deals with my name forged on them as a cosigner, making me liable for debts I'd never agreed to. Email printouts discussing ways to hide assets from tax auditors. I used a cheap burner phone I'd bought with cash to photograph everything. My mother's prized jewelry collection held secrets too. In a locked wooden box she kept in the back of her closet, hidden behind shoeboxes, I found the real story. Most of her estate pieces were clever fakes. The woman who'd spent decades bragging about her inherited wealth had been wearing costume jewelry and lying about it. But more interesting were the letters. Old letters from my father's business partners, threatening legal action. Letters from banks about missed mortgage payments on properties I didn't know existed. Evidence of a carefully constructed facade that was crumbling at the edges. And Jessica. Oh, Jessica. Her entire life was performance art. I discovered her private messages to her influencer friends, the ones she thought were encrypted. Messages where she called Lucas that little burden and me the family embarrassment, screenshots of her real finances showing that most of her designer items were rented or borrowed for photos. Posts where she'd laugh about playing the part of the perfect mother while her daughter Lily was actually being raised by nannies. I collected it all. Every piece of evidence, every contradiction, every lie. And I waited. The first strike was subtle. I created an anonymous email account and began sending my father copies of his own documents. Not accusations. Just questions. Did you mean to sign this deed twice with different handwriting? Interesting property partnership. Does the IRS know about this structure? I watched him become paranoid. He started checking his files obsessively, looking over his shoulder. He accused his business partners of trying to sabotage him. He and my mother had screaming matches about money, about secrets, about trust. I'd never seen my father rattled before. It was satisfying in a way I hadn't expected. For Jessica, I took a different approach. I joined local parenting groups on Facebook and Nextdoor under fake accounts. I'd screenshot her old Instagram stories, the ones where she'd complained about Lucas, where she'd made cruel jokes about single mothers, where she'd shown her true colors to her inner circle. Then I'd post them anonymously in these community groups with simple captions. Is this the kind of person we want representing family values in Lakewood? Thoughts on this influencer's real opinions? At first, it was just whispers. Then Jessica started losing sponsorship deals. Her follower count began to drop. Brands stopped sending her PR packages. Other mothers at Lily's school started giving her cold shoulders. She couldn't figure out who was behind it, and that made it worse. She became obsessive, paranoid, lashing out at friends and accusing everyone of betrayal. And I just smiled and brought casserole to family dinners. One Sunday evening, my mother cornered me in the kitchen while I was washing dishes. Sarah, have you noticed your father seems stressed lately? Has he? I asked innocently, scrubbing a plate. And Jessica thinks someone is sabotaging her brand. She's convinced it's one of her competitors. Margaret's eyes narrowed slightly. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I turned to face her, dish soap dripping from my hands. Mother, I clean offices for a living. I barely have time to sleep, let alone orchestrate corporate espionage. Maybe Jessica should be more careful about what she says online. Margaret studied me for a long moment, and for the first time in my life, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Then she laughed it off. Of course, dear. I don't know what I was thinking. But she did know. On some level, she knew. The real catalyst came 6 weeks after the school incident. Mountain View Elementary announced their annual Generations Day, a beloved tradition where students invited family members to share stories about heritage, connection, and love. It was usually a sweet event, full of grandparents telling war stories and parents sharing family recipes. This year, it had grown into something bigger. The local newspaper was covering it. The school board would be in attendance. Several local businesses were sponsoring the event, and there would be speeches from community leaders about the importance of intergenerational bonds. Jessica immediately RSVP'd for the whole family. This was exactly the kind of public event she lived for. Photo opportunities. A chance to show off the perfect family. She'd probably already planned her outfit. I RSVP'd too, for Lucas and me. The week before the event, I did something I'd been avoiding. I sat down with Lucas and had a hard conversation. Baby, Generations Day is coming up, I started, watching him color at our kitchen table. How are you feeling about it? He kept coloring, but his hand slowed. I don't know. You can be honest with me. He put down his crayon and looked up at me with those big brown eyes that looked too old for 7. Mom, do I have to say nice things about Grandma and Grandpa? The other kids' grandparents are nice. But ours... He trailed off. Lucas, I want you to tell the truth. Whatever truth feels right to you. Can you do that? He nodded slowly. Will you help me? Always. We spent the next week working on his presentation. I didn't tell him what to say. I just asked him questions. How did he feel that day at school? What did he think about family? Who made him feel safe? He answered honestly, in the way only children can, without filters or fear. And I helped him shape those answers into words that would fit a presentation. We also made a picture frame in his art class. Lucas decorated it with blue and green paint, his favorite colors. Inside, he wanted to put a quote. We searched together until he found one that resonated with him. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who love you, who show up, who never give up on you. The morning of Generations Day arrived bright and cold, the kind of October day where the Colorado sun pretends it's still summer, but the wind knows better. The school gymnasium was transformed with banners reading Love Across Generations and Building Bridges Through Family. Rows of folding chairs faced a small stage decorated with student artwork. Local business banners hung from the walls, their logos proud and prominent. A photographer from the Lakewood Times was setting up in the corner. The school board members sat in reserved seats up front. And right there, in the front row, sat my family. Robert in his expensive suit, looking every bit the successful businessman. Margaret in her pearls, real or fake. Who could tell anymore? Jessica in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, one hand on Lily's shoulder like she was posing for a magazine spread. They looked perfect, untouchable. The kind of family everyone admired from afar. I walked past them with Lucas, and Jessica's voice carried just loud enough for me to hear. Oh, Sarah showed up. How surprising. I didn't respond. I just smiled and found seats in the middle section. The program began with Principal Henderson welcoming everyone and talking about the importance of family bonds, of legacy, of passing wisdom between generations. Then the presentation started. Student after student brought up grandparents and parents who shared sweet stories, a grandfather who taught his granddaughter to fish, a grandmother who'd immigrated from Vietnam and shared her journey, a father who'd been in the military and talked about service. Each story was met with applause and smiles. Lily went up with Jessica. Together they read from note cards about how Jessica's mother, my mother, was an inspiration of grace and strength, and how their family was bonded by love and support. The performance was flawless. Margaret actually dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. The photographer captured it all. Jessica beamed like she'd just won an award. Then it was Lucas's turn. I watched him walk up to that stage, small and nervous, clutching his handmade picture frame. The gymnasium went quiet. He stepped up to the microphone, and Principal Henderson had to lower it for him. "Hi everyone," he started, his voice tiny in the big space. "My name is Lucas." He paused, taking a breath the way we'd practiced. "I want to thank my mom, Sarah, for teaching me what family really means." His voice grew a little stronger. "She taught me that family isn't about who you're related to. It's about who shows up for you." I saw Margaret's face tighten. Jessica's smile froze. Lucas continued, his words clear now, practiced but genuine. "Last month, my grandma and grandpa and aunt left me at school. I waited for them at the curb, but they drove away. They laughed and said they weren't a free taxi service. I had to sit on the sidewalk by myself. I was scared." The gymnasium was completely silent now. I could see parents in the audience sitting up straighter. The photographer lowered her camera. Principal Henderson's expression was somber but supportive. "I thought it was my fault," Lucas said, and his voice cracked just a little. "I thought I'd done something wrong. I thought maybe I wasn't good enough for them to love me." Margaret stood up abruptly, but Robert pulled her back down. Jessica's face had gone pale. Lily looked confused. "But when I got home, my mom told me I wasn't the problem. She told me that being kind is more important than being right. That showing up matters more than looking perfect." And she was right. Lucas held up his picture frame. "So, I made this. It says, family isn't always blood. It's the people who love you, who show up, who never give up on you." He looked directly at my parents and Jessica. "Some people teach you who you want to be, and some people teach you who you never want to become. Both are important lessons." The applause started slowly, then built like a wave. Parents stood, teachers clapped. Principal Henderson walked over and put her hand on Lucas's shoulder, smiling proudly. The school board members were nodding to each other, whispering. The photographer was clicking away frantically. And my family sat frozen in their seats, trapped by their own pride, unable to leave without confirming everything Lucas had just said, unable to deny it without looking worse. Jessica's face was red, tears of humiliation streaming down her cheeks, ruining her perfect makeup. Margaret's lips were pressed into a thin line so tight they'd disappeared. Robert's face had gone from red to purple, his jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle twitching. Lucas walked back to me, and I pulled him into my arms. "I'm so proud of you," I whispered. The rest of the program was a blur. More presentations happened, but the energy had shifted. Parents kept glancing at my family. Whispers spread through the crowd. The photographer definitely got her story. After the program ended, parents crowded around Lucas and me. Mrs. Chen, whose daughter was in Lucas's class, hugged me. "That took courage, both of you." Mr. Patterson, a local business owner who'd sponsored the event, handed me his card. "We're starting a mentorship program for single parents in the community. We'd love to have you and Lucas involved." Principal Henderson pulled me aside. "Sarah, I want you to know that we take these matters seriously. If you ever need support, resources, anything, please come to me." I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Support, community, validation. Then I heard the sharp click of heels on gymnasium floor. "We need to talk, now." Jessica's voice was venomous. I turned to find my entire family standing there, a united front of fury and embarrassment. Robert's face was still purple. Margaret looked like she'd swallowed glass. Jessica was shaking with rage. "Not here," I said calmly. "Outside." We walked to the parking lot, my family following like a storm cloud. Once we were away from witnesses, Robert grabbed my arm. "Hard. Do you have any idea what you've done? What you've made that boy say?" I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up at his face. "I didn't make Lucas say anything. I just told him to tell the truth." "You have a problem with the truth?" "You humiliated us," Jessica hissed. "In front of everyone. The newspaper was there, the school board. My followers will hear about this." "Good," I said simply. "Maybe they should know who you really are." Margaret stepped forward, her voice dripping with condescension. "Sarah, dear, you're being hysterical. Lucas is a child. He doesn't understand what he's saying. He's confused. Probably something you put in his head. He understands perfectly. He understands that you left him on a curb and drove away laughing. He understands that you've never once asked about his life, his school, his dreams. He understands that to you, he's invisible unless he's useful." "We have been nothing but generous to you," Robert snarled. "We gave you furniture. We invited you to family dinners. We tried to include you despite your poor choices. Your generosity came with conditions. Your inclusion was a performance. And my poor choices?" I stepped closer to him. "Let's talk about choices, Dad. Like the choice to forge my signature on property documents, or the choice to hide assets from the IRS, or the choice to..." His face went white. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the truth, the real truth, not the version you've been selling to everyone else. Jessica laughed, but it sounded brittle. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just bitter and jealous because I have success, and you're a cleaning lady. I turned to her. Jessica, I know about the fake designer items, the rented bags, the declining sponsorships, the messages where you call your own daughter a prop for content. Should I go on? Her face crumpled. For a moment, she looked genuinely scared. And mother? I continued, my voice steady and cold. Those estate jewelry pieces you love to brag about? The ones you say are priceless family heirlooms? They're costume jewelry. Good fakes, but fakes nonetheless. I have the receipts. Literally. Margaret's hand flew to her necklace reflexively. How did you? Robert started, but I cut him off. How did I get this information? The same way I've been getting it for weeks. You all underestimated me. You thought I was too stupid, too tired, too beaten down to pay attention. But I've been paying attention for years. And I've been collecting evidence. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Robert's voice came out quiet and dangerous. What do you want? I don't want anything from you. That's the point. I don't want your money. I don't want your approval. I don't want your conditional love that comes with strings and shame. I just want you to stay away from Lucas. And from me. You can't cut us out, Margaret said, but her voice wavered. We're family. No, I said firmly. Family shows up. Family protects. Family loves without conditions. You're just people I happen to share DNA with. And Lucas deserves better than people who make him feel worthless. Jessica tried one last time. Sarah, please, we can fix this. We can... Fix what? The years of favoritism, the financial manipulation, the emotional abuse, the way you abandoned a 7-year-old child and laughed about it? I shook my head. You can't fix what you don't think is broken, and you've never once admitted you did anything wrong. I turned to walk away, then stopped and looked back at them one more time. You wanted me to know my place. Well, I do now. It's not here. Not with you. Not anymore. Robert opened his mouth, probably to threaten me, but I held up my hand. Before you say anything else, you should know that I've made copies of everything. Every document, every message, every piece of evidence, they're in a safe place with someone I trust. And if anything happens to me or Lucas, if you try to retaliate in any way, everything goes to the IRS, to the local media, and to the State Bar Association. Your choice. I walked back to the gymnasium, where Lucas was waiting with Mrs. Rodriguez. I took his hand. Mom? He asked, looking up at me. Are you okay? Yeah, baby, I'm better than okay. We're free. The fallout was immediate and thorough. The Lakewood Times ran a feature article about Generations Day, and while they didn't name names, the story about a young boy's brave honesty about family dysfunction was the centerpiece. Jessica's remaining sponsors dropped her within a week. Her follower count plummeted. The parenting groups in Lakewood quietly stopped including her in events. Robert's business partnerships began to dissolve, as questions surfaced about his financial practices. The IRS did eventually open an investigation, though I never confirmed whether my anonymous tips had anything to do with it. Margaret's social standing took a hit when word spread through the country club about the costume jewelry incident. Turned out, the wives she'd been competing with for years loved having ammunition. But more importantly, Lucas flourished. Without the constant anxiety of mandatory family dinners, without the cruel comments and comparisons, without having to watch me swallow my pride and dignity week after week, he became lighter, happier. His grades improved. He made new friends. He started sleeping through the night without nightmares. We found a community of people who actually cared. The single parents support group that Mr. Patterson started became a lifeline. Other mothers who understood what it meant to choose your child over toxic family. Mrs. Chen invited us to her daughter's birthday party. Principal Henderson connected me with a better job opportunity at the school district's main office, with benefits and regular hours. Lucas and I started our own traditions. Friday night movie marathons, Saturday morning pancakes with chocolate chips. Sunday evening walks around Sloan's Lake, where we'd talk about our week and make plans for the next one. Simple things. But they were ours, untainted by obligation or judgment. My parents tried to reach out a few times, letters claiming they'd been misunderstood, voicemails suggesting family therapy, messages through mutual acquaintances about how we should reconcile for Lucas's sake. I deleted them all. Lucas's sake was exactly why I was done. Jessica sent a long text message about 6 months later, around 2 a.m., clearly written in some kind of emotional breakdown. It was full of accusations and self-pity, claiming I'd destroyed her life and always been jealous, and how she was the real victim in all of this. I read it once, then blocked her number. But it was Robert's final attempt that was the most telling. He showed up at my new apartment one evening, standing in the hallway like a salesman who'd lost his pitch. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked old, tired, diminished. Sarah, he said when I opened the door, can we talk? No, I said simply. Please, 5 minutes, I just need to explain. There's nothing to explain. I understand perfectly. He shifted uncomfortably. You don't understand what it's like. The pressure, the expectations, trying to maintain a certain image. You're right. I don't understand that. What I do understand is a mother choosing to protect her child, something you never did for me. His face crumbled a little. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I'm sorry, he said finally, and it sounded genuine. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. It's worth something, I acknowledged, but it's not worth enough. Apologies don't erase actions, they don't undo trauma, and they don't automatically earn forgiveness. So that's it? We're done? We were done the moment you chose your image over your grandson's safety. You just didn't realize it yet. He nodded slowly, like he'd expected this answer. What if I change? What if I prove I'm different? Then prove it to yourself, not to me. Lucas and I have moved on. After he left, I stood in my doorway for a long time, watching the empty hallway. I waited to feel guilty. I waited to feel sad. But all I felt was peace. That night, Lucas and I made chocolate chip pancakes for dinner, breaking all the rules, laughing when the first one came out shaped like a blob instead of a circle. He told me about his day, about the science project he was planning, about the soccer team he wanted to join. Normal things. Beautiful. Mundane, normal things. Mom? He asked as we washed dishes together. Do you miss them, Grandma and Grandpa? I thought about it honestly. I miss the idea of them. I miss what I always hoped they could be. But do I miss who they actually were? No, baby, I don't. Me neither, he said quietly. Then, is it okay that I don't? I knelt down to his eye level. It's more than okay. You're allowed to miss people who hurt you, and you're allowed not to miss them. Both are valid. Both are true. You feel however you feel, and that's the right way to feel it. He hugged me tight. I'm glad it's just us. Me too, buddy, me too. As I tucked him into bed that night, I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, the one who kept showing up to family dinners where she wasn't wanted, the one who kept apologizing for existing, the one who let her child be treated as less than because she was too afraid to make waves. That woman felt like a stranger now. The fire that had started the day they abandoned Lucas at school hadn't burned out. It had transformed. It wasn't rage anymore. It was something better. It was boundaries, self-respect, the understanding that walking away from toxicity isn't weakness, it's survival. It's choosing life over obligation. People talk about revenge like it's always hot and dramatic, like it's always about destruction. But the best revenge I ever got wasn't destroying my family. It was building a life without them. A life where Lucas knew he was valuable. A life where I stopped performing for an audience that never applauded. A life that was small and imperfect and undeniably, beautifully ours. On Lucas's 8th birthday, we had a party at our apartment. It wasn't fancy. We had supermarket cake and pizza from the place down the street and decorations from the dollar store. But our small living room was full of people who actually loved us. Mrs. Chen and her daughter, Mr. Patterson and his wife, Principal Henderson, Mrs. Rodriguez, the other single moms from the support group. People who'd shown up not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Lucas blew out his candles and made a wish. Later, when everyone had gone home and we were cleaning up paper plates and deflating balloons, I asked him what he'd wished for. I can't tell you or it won't come true. He said with the seriousness only an 8-year-old can muster. Fair enough. But are you happy? He looked around our small apartment, at the streamers still hanging from the ceiling, at the leftover cake on the counter, at the pile of gifts from people who actually knew what he liked. Then he looked at me. Yeah, Mom, I'm really happy. Are you? I pulled him close, breathing in the smell of birthday cake and childhood. Yeah, baby. I really am. And I meant it. Because sometimes the happy ending isn't about reconciliation or forgiveness or big dramatic gestures. Sometimes it's about sitting in your small apartment with your son, eating leftover birthday cake, and realizing that you'd rather have this moment, this peace, this truth, than all the fancy dinners and fake smiles in the world. The last time I saw my mother was about a year after Generations Day. I was picking up groceries at King Soopers, and I saw her in the produce section. She looked older, smaller, somehow. She saw me too, and for a moment we just stared at each other across a display of apples. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something. I waited, giving her the chance. But whatever she was going to say died on her lips. She turned and walked away, her cart squeaking on the linoleum. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just a quiet acknowledgement that some relationships end not with explosions, but with silence. And that was okay. I bought my groceries, drove home, and found Lucas doing homework at our kitchen table. He looked up and smiled when I came in. How was the store? He asked. Uneventful, I said. And it was true. That evening, we made stir-fry together. Lucas carefully measuring out the soy sauce while I chopped vegetables. The radio played soft jazz. The window was open, letting in the cool evening air. It was ordinary. Peaceful. Hours later, after Lucas went to bed, I sat on our small balcony with a cup of tea and looked out at the Denver skyline. The mountains were dark silhouettes against a purple sky. Somewhere in this city, my parents were probably sitting in their expensive house, surrounded by expensive things, maintaining their expensive lives. Jessica was probably planning her next reinvention, her next attempt to manufacture authenticity. And I was here, in my small apartment, with my sleeping son, with my modest life. And I wouldn't trade places with any of them for anything in the world. Because I'd learned something they never would. That real wealth isn't in bank accounts or social media followers or country club memberships. It's in the peace you feel when you close your eyes at night. It's in the child who trusts you completely. It's in the life you build with honesty instead of performance. They taught me what I didn't want to be, and in doing so, they freed me to become who I actually was. The fire they lit in me that day at the school didn't destroy me. It forged me. It burned away the parts of myself I'd built to please them, to fit their mold, to earn their approval. And what was left was stronger, clearer, truer. I am not my family's disappointment. I am Lucas's hero. I am my own person. I am enough. And that, I realized, watching the city lights flicker on one by one, was the best revenge of all.